My name is Rich Severson, and I'm the SE Director at NComputing. And today we're going to talk about vSpace Pro and the architectural differences of vSpace Pro versus vSpace 6 or vSpace 8. The key about this is just understanding the architectural differences so that when you or your customers deploy vSpace Pro, you understand the differences in the technology to make sure that you have a successful deployment. Okay, so we're going to go through this, and please, if there's any questions, feel free to ask or ask in the chat, okay? So the big things about vSpace Pro is understanding the architectural overview, the deployment scenarios, the management portal, the vSpace manager, the vSpace server to vSpace manager integration, how the vSpace clients interact, and then obviously we'll cover next steps and questions and answers if anybody has any, okay? This is the architectural overview simplified, and what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the clients, how the clients interact with the vSpace servers, how the vSpace servers communicate to the vSpace manager, and then we're going to talk about the management portal itself, okay? And where all these components are located and what the interactions are of these. This is a detailed overview, and it's not important to understand everything that's going on in this slide, but it's important to understand that there are different pieces of the architecture, and everything that's going to be part of the architecture is going to be in the customer environment with the exception of the management portal. Down here below, we talk about all the different communication paths with all these different pieces. So we have the licensing server, the vSpace console, the classroom management, and the resource monitor. These are premium features that we'll talk about in a little bit. The vSpace console and the vSpace server interaction, again, premium features that are coming up this quarter. And then we're going to talk about what the data is in these databases. It's not important to worry about these databases as far as backing them up with those kinds of things, because the information that's in here is actually going to be contained in the management portal as well. It's also important to note that the information going back and forth between the vSpace manager and the management portal is secured data that is TLS SSL data on port 8666. Okay? And you'll understand the importance and why that matters in just a little bit. So here in this slide, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the different deployment scenarios. So when you deploy vSpace Pro, you have the opportunity to do a custom install or a standard install. And when you do a standard install, the assumption is that we're going to install both roles, the vSpace manager and the vSpace server, on the same OS or the same host. Okay. Now it is important to note that these can be either physical hosts or virtual hosts. We don't care. But a standard install will install both vSpace manager and vSpace server. We expect that many or a lot of the installations are going to be more like this scenario, in that where a customer will have a vSpace manager and a vSpace server on one physical OS or virtual OS, and then they will have additional virtual or vSpace servers within their environment as well. Okay. This is also a scenario where you could have the vSpace manager installed in its own OS, separate from the vSpace servers. The principal difference of these is the vSpace server is the session host, kind of like vSpace server that you're used to today, where that's where the users connect and get their sessions, and then the vSpace manager is used to interact between the different vSpace servers, and that's what's demonstrated here. So again, you can have the vSpace manager and the vSpace server on the same OS, or you can have them on the same OS and have vSpace servers installed separately, or you can have the vSpace manager installed separately on its own. We expect that the vSpace manager will be able to handle up to hundreds of vSpace servers, but for now, as we're first starting out with vSpace Pro, we're expecting people not to exceed 20 to 25 per server or per manager. Okay. It's important to understand that within organizations, depending on how the organization is laid out, either physically or administratively, that'll make a difference on how you deploy this. And it's important to understand that in an organization, so let's say that this is a single entity or organization where, let's say that they have two different field technicians. So this could be one organization, but they may have two different vSpace managers within the organization. Let's say one is North America and South America. So you have a technician that's responsible for the manager that covers North America and the vSpace servers that provide applications or desktops to the users in North America. And then you have a technician that's responsible for South America or Latin America, and then a technician that's responsible for those servers. So these can be within the same corporate organization, but just different physical locations. It just depends on how the users are going to deploy and how they're going to be used and what the administrative roles are within the organization. Okay, but it is important to note that each vSpace server must be connected to a vSpace manager, and it can only connect to one vSpace manager, but it must be connected to a vSpace manager. Okay, so now the next part we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the management portal. And then what's important to understand about the management portal is that it is a cloud-based web interface hosted at Amazon Web Service by us, and it is used for customers and partners to log in. And what that does is that gives you the master repository of software products, customers, licenses, and devices, and it gives you a single point of access through NComputing.com. Within the management portal, there are 3 different types of users. There's those of us like myself that are NComputing employees or personnel that have NComputing domain emails. Then there are customers, and then there's logins for partners and resellers. And there's different roles within each of those logins, and you'll see that. And then within each of those logins, we have different role-based permissions. So there's administrator roles or technical level roles, and you'll see that as we go through this. Okay. At this time, I always like to talk about the mobile apps and access to the management portal via the mobile apps. So for those of you that have Android or iOS devices, we actually have 2 applications in the appropriate stores, right? And the iTunes Store and the Chrome Web or the Google Web Store, right? And those apps are Register and Device Inquiry. So what you'll do is you'll go into the management portal at NComputing.com, you'll create an account and user account and log in, and then you can install those applications on the appropriate mobile device, and then with those applications log into the management portal. And what that's going to do is that's going to give you the ability to be able to scan barcodes of the devices that you have and register those devices to the NComputing management portal. And what that'll do is that'll give you information about the warranty, where it was sold, when it was sold, and all that kind of information that you'll probably find useful. And for the partners, you'll be able to say that that device was sold to us, and then we sold it to customer XYZ. Some of that functionality is not there yet, but I would tell you that you probably have, if you have, the Android or iOS devices, it would be wise of you to download the applications and create a login account and get used to what you can do with those applications. Okay. So from the NComputing personnel standpoint, we can manage software products, customer management information as far as who's the administrators, so we can help you if the customers are having problems. Let's say that a customer administrator role person leaves, we can help reassign that role if need be. We can manage partner information today. Again, that's limited functionality initially. We can help manage software licensing, devices, activity log, and manage the users within the environment. From a customer perspective, right, the customer has the ability to see this, have the structure of the organization, entity, the administrator users, what software licenses they have, what registered devices, what vSpace managers they have, what vSpace servers they have, and what thin client connected devices are connected to those servers. And again, this is one of those things when you log into the management portal, you'll see and you'll understand what those roles are for, and we'll cover the management portal in just a little bit, and it'll probably make more sense at that point. Okay. Again, this is where the customers can purchase software, manage the purchase software, manage their vSpace managers of devices, users, and redeem license keys. And you'll understand what that's about in just a couple minutes when we talk about the premium features. From our partners and resellers, initially there's going to be a limited functionality, but like I said, this is where the mobile app for iOS and Android will give you the ability to query information about devices. So, for those of you that are in different locations, if a customer, an end user customer calls and says, I have a device that I need to have repaired or replaced, you can actually use the mobile app to scan the serial number of the device and find out whether or not the device is your responsibility from a warranty perspective and that type of information. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about the vSpace Manager. Now, again, remember, we're talking about different components here. So there's the clients, the vSpace service, the vSpace Manager, and we just talked about the management portal, and I'll show you that functionality. But now we're going to talk about the vSpace Manager and what that role is between the vSpace servers and the management portal. So the vSpace Manager is deployed in a customer environment. It provides information about the vSpace servers and the data and the license keys that are being managed within the environment. It is the licensing gatekeeper. It's the repository for the vSpace console information. It'll list the vSpace servers that are connected, have information about device profiles and device group information, and it's a repository for future products. Again, we'll talk about the classroom management and the resource monitor. Okay, it can be installed on the vSpace server, or it can be installed alone. But again, there must be at least one vSpace manager in every environment. And I like to bring up at this point, when you do the install of a vSpace server, if you do, either the standard install or the custom install, but when you install a vSpace server, the part that gives the users the sessions, that vSpace server must be connected to a manager before it will be allowed to provide sessions. So even if it's the first one, when you reboot the vSpace host, it will come up and it'll say that it has to be connected to a manager in order to provide sessions. Okay, so just be aware of that. You may get a situation where a customer says, hey, our server's not providing sessions. You'll want to look to see if their vSpace server is actually connected to the vSpace manager. Okay. Again, the vSpace manager can support many connected vSpace servers. So again, the initial thought was around 20. And periodically, it will connect to the management portal to make sure that the licensing information is up to date. Again, we talked about this at the beginning. The licensing data is TLS data. It is encrypted, and it is stored locally on the vSpace manager. And that information is cached, and we'll talk about the caching rules and how that works. It's also important to note, though, that we have designed and architected into the system a 96-hour or 4-day grace period where the features will continue to work, and we did that in case there is a disconnected environment for whatever reason. Many of you or some of you recently have been near misses or close by experiences with hurricanes where there may be connectivity issues where a vSpace manager may not be able to connect to the management portal for a couple of days to make sure that the license data is up to date and accurate. So like I said, we've built in a 96-hour grace period, assuming that the four-day maintenance period kind of thing will be able to cover those types of issues or situations. Okay. The vSpace manager has custom licenses, or customer licenses, and this is the nice thing. And what we've done, the purpose for this, if you will, if you think about the legacy, and I say legacy being vSpace 8, vSpace 6, where you may have had soft client licenses for the Chrome client licenses or vSpace client for PC, where you had those licenses. If you had 3 different servers, vSpace 1, vSpace 2, and vSpace 3, and you had 30 license keys to be able to distribute, or a 30 user key, which server would you put that on? And then you would have to point all of your users to the same server. Well, now with the vSpace manager, you can actually put that 30 user key onto the vSpace manager, and you can allocate the keys across vSpace 1, vSpace 2, and vSpace 3. And I'll show you how that works. And the way that it's architected actually works very well. Okay, but the important thing about it is previously, if your vSpace server failed, that license key was then used or lost, and you would have to contact us to get a new key. Now, if something happens to the vSpace manager, you can build a new vSpace manager, connect it to the management portal with your credentials, and because the license keys are attached to your credentials within the management portal, you can then reallocate those keys to your vSpace manager. So effectively, your keys will never get lost. Okay. We don't expect that the vSpace manager will be something that the users or the administrators will be logged into regularly. It's going to be one of those things that as you build an environment and deploy the environment, what you'll do is you'll redeem your license keys, you'll give the software license keys and set the license key cache settings, and then allocate your premium features. And we'll talk about the premium features again. Again, down here, the note is that can I connect a vSpace server to more than one vSpace manager? No, but it must be connected to at least one manager. Okay. So the vSpace manager is registered to the management portal. Previously with vSpace, the legacy vSpace 6 and vSpace 8, when you installed the server, you would have to fill out the form and hit submit, and that form would then submit and register and give the license key to the vSpace server. Now you don't have to do that. Once you register the vSpace manager and the vSpace manager is registered to the portal, any vSpace server that connects to that manager will automatically be registered. Likewise, any device that connects to those vSpace servers will automatically be registered as well, and that will help you by providing you registration and warranty information about your devices in a single location. Okay. But again, the important thing here is master pool of software client licenses, the locally cached pool of software client licenses. So they are cached locally, and they do exchange information with the manager, and we'll show you how that works in just a few minutes. This is somewhat of a redundant slide in the fact that it's talking about the client licenses again, right, where you can have those client licenses and you can allocate them to a vSpace manager and you can return them to the management portal and then reassign them to other vSpace managers if you need to do that. And what that means is, again, if you talk about the different regional areas of responsibility between, say, North America and Latin America, if I had purchased a key of 30 vSpace client keys for our entire organization, company.com, and I originally put them all on vSpace Manager for North America, but now I needed to be able to provide some keys for Latin America, I would be able to reallocate those keys from one manager to the other or share those keys across them. Okay, and that's what the purpose of the management portal is to allow you to share license keys and manage license keys and premium features within the environment. Okay, and that's what this is talking about as well. Within the manager, you can also monitor the services, the vSpace console integration, the classroom management, and the resource monitor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about these two real quick. We're not going to go terribly into depth into them and the fact that you can see that they're future. But one of the things that we're doing is we're introducing premium features with vSpace Pro. And those premium features are going to be paid features that you will get keys for from the management portal or from your partners, and then you'll be able to allocate those keys to your vSpace manager and use them within the environment. The purpose of the classroom management, if you think about with the legacy versions of vSpace, you had the ability to see what sessions were on a vSpace server. You were able to take control of those sessions. And with the vSpace 8, you could actually go to the session view and you could select the multi-session view and see all of the sessions that were on that vSpace 8 server. But in order to do that, you had to be the system administrator. We've been asked often to be able to provide that role to, say, a teacher. So what we're going to do with the classroom management features, we're going to take those features of the remote control and the session view where you can manage and see all the sessions, and we're going to provide that as a role for, say, a teacher, whereas the vSpace administrator, you would then be able to enable the classroom management feature and then assign that role to a teacher, and the teacher would no longer have to be the system administrator to be able to use that role. So that's going to be the classroom management feature. We have no intent of going after the vendors that actually provide full classroom management suite. This is going to be just the basic classroom management features for those that don't want to have to purchase for an add-on or third-party product. We also are going to be introducing a premium feature called a resource monitor, and this is going to be really helpful, certainly for the engineering and technical people, in that it will give us the ability to, from the vSpace manager, you'll be able to assign a resource monitor to a vSpace server, and you'll be able to see how many or what resources are being utilized on the vSpace server. So if you have vSpace Server 1, vSpace Server 2, vSpace Server 3, you'll be able to tell that all the users are connecting to vSpace 1 and vSpace 1 is being 100% overtaxed, and be able to reallocate your users, if you will. The nice thing about this resource monitor, again, it's a future feature product that will be there, but at some point, again, with the mobility apps, what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to set rules and limits on the resource monitor that says, if one of my CPUs on vSpace 1, vSpace 2, or vSpace 3 hits 100% utilization, I want to send it to send a notification to the mobility app for me. So that's going to be some of the stuff that's going to be coming along with the premium features in the future. Okay, so we're going to talk about the vSpace server to vSpace manager integration now, the data and the information that goes between the vSpace servers and the vSpace manager. Again, it's important to remember that the vSpace manager is for managing the overall environment of the vSpace servers, and the vSpace servers are the piece of the environment that provides the actual user sessions. Okay. Like I said, on computer reboot, when you first do the installation, it will detect and or ask for a vSpace manager, but it must be connected to a vSpace manager in order to provide a session. Okay, so a vSpace server will not grant session connection request until it has established a connection to a vSpace manager that has been registered to the management portal. Okay, and this is where, again, if you think about the original slide where we're talking about the detailed pieces, vSpace server will communicate with the licensing agent. The licensing agent will communicate with the licensing process on the vSpace manager and make sure that the licenses are distributed appropriately throughout the environment for the software client licenses and their premium features to make sure that everything is enabled appropriately. The licensing agent sends serial numbers and connected hardware devices information to the licensing server, and then it provides it to the vSpace manager, and then the vSpace manager will provide that information up to the management portal. One of the things that I like to make sure that I point out to everyone too is the fact that even though you will be connecting your vSpace servers to your vSpace managers and your vSpace managers to the management portal, we can assist you in allocating services and features within the management portal, but we at NComputing will have no access or visibility to end user sessions or end user data. Okay? Again, I want to make sure that that's stressed. For security purposes, NComputing via the management portal has no visibility to user sessions, user data, or what the users are doing, or even user accounts. Okay? Again, this note is talking about the 96-hour or 4-day grace period, so that, again, if there's a weekend maintenance period, those kinds of things, everything will continue to work. vSpace clients. So I'm sure most of you are aware that we have vSpace clients for Chromebooks and vSpace clients for PCs. It is important to know that the vSpace software clients existing are not compatible with vSpace Pro, so the sessions that attempt will be rejected. You do have to have the vSpace Pro clients, and again, you can download the vSpace Pro client from our website, and for the Chromebooks, obviously, you can get it from the Google Play Store, right? It is important to know that the functionality between the vSpace clients and the vSpace Pro clients are effectively the same, but they are branded differently so you can tell which ones are which. But the keys are also different. The keys are actually structurally different. So if you plan on using vSpace Pro and the vSpace Pro soft clients, you will need to have vSpace Pro keys. If you are an existing customer that has the legacy keys or vSpace client keys with a vSpace 6 or vSpace 8 environment, and the customer chooses to move to vSpace Pro and the keys are relatively new, let us know and we'll be happy to work with you to make sure that you can go from one environment to the other as a smooth transition. Okay. Now we're going to talk about another premium feature that is actually already included in vSpace Pro. Some of it's in, some of it is not, as some of it is still being updated and will be included later this year. And that is our vCast technology. Okay. So basically, what vCast is vCast is the ability to send a media stream from the source to the endpoint without having any CPU utilization on the vSpace server itself, okay? So if you think about it, vCast web streaming, which is available now when you install vSpace, if the vSpace software client connects to a web content via its vSpace session, and that web content is recognized as H.264, and the software client has the ability to play that content locally, what it will do, it will redirect and stream that content from the source directly to the endpoint without any CPU TAC, and that's what this is demonstrating. And that's actually available today, and by default, you get 90 days of trial client license for vCast web streaming. Okay. Coming later this year is, again, the ability to do the same thing, except for if the content is known as H.264 is on the vSpace host already, it will be able to stream it to the client, again, without any CPU utilization. And I'm going to give you a couple of slides that will demonstrate this information in just a little bit. And then also, if you're using our hardware devices, the L300s, MX devices, the M devices, our video acceleration engine is what we call Mojo. And what you'll be able to do is you will be able to create or take any content that you have on your vSpace server. Think about training videos and those types of things. You'll be able to convert that to the Mojo format and be able to stream that information from the vSpace server to the thin clients, the hardware thin clients, again, without any CPU utilization on the host. Okay, so we're kind of doing what other vendors in the virtualization space are, in that we're creating an outside or a separate video streaming channel to be able to stream the content that is H.264 directly to the devices without any CPU utilization. So again, that's what this is talking about, right? And the way that we're doing this is we're doing this with what we call interceptors. And those interceptors are known to different websites and different content, and this will continue to develop. And the nice thing about this is this information, because your managers are connected to the management portal, as we increase and update the interceptors and the extensions and the websites that are going to be able to take advantage of vCast, that information will be passed down to your vSpace manager, and then by default passed from the vSpace manager to the premium vCast feature that is enabled on the servers as well. Okay. This slide is demonstrating what the difference is. In this case, we're doing a 30 frame per second 720 video without vCast, and you notice it has a 45% CPU utilization. The exact same video with vCast enabled is using less than 10% of the CPU utilization. And down here, it's the same video, but at 1080, and you see 30 frames per second at 1080p, it is using 60% of the CPU, and with vCast enabled, it's only utilizing 10%. So you can imagine the experience and the stream of that data is going to be much smoother, and you're actually going to have higher scalability of users on your servers. Okay. vCast licensing. Like I said, vCast licensing by default is provided for 3 months free. It's a trial license. It's there. We encourage everybody to use it. It is licensed on a per server basis, regardless of the number of users, right? And the vCast license will give you the ability to use the web streaming feature, the media redirection, and Mojo streaming, and it is $99 per year per server. Okay, and again, that's the MSRP. Okay, and the point being here is the ongoing effort to keep the interceptors up to date, plus development of more interceptors. So again, if you pay the $99 per server and you enable or buy the vCast Premium feature, we will keep that up to date for you via the management portal services. Okay, so this part is going to talk about the license allocation, how as an administrator, when you have your vSpace servers, then you have the vSpace manager, and you have your login to the management portal, how you can take your licenses from your vSpace manager and allocate them across your environment. Okay, and there's a lot of information on the slide, but think about this as in that there's 2 types of software licenses, right? There's the vSpace software client licenses, and then there's the premium feature licenses. And again, you'll be able to see those licenses within the management portal and the manager, and then allocate them to your servers appropriately. And again, I'll show you some of this, right? So, here's for purposes of the explanation here, we're going to assume that the organization has, a IT administrator, software licenses, vSpace manager, and then the ability to allocate those licenses across the vSpace servers. So we're looking at a Washington school district where we have Fred Jones and Sally Smith, both are IT admins. They have 10 seats for vSpace software client connections, 2 copies of vCast web streaming. They have vSpace Manager A, vSpace Manager B, and we're going to get 3 seats of vSpace software clients on Manager A and 1 copy of vCast on Manager A, and then 7 and 1 across Manager B. And again, this is just the purposes of being able to explain it, right? But because the management portal is the master repository for the licenses, the information is being seen up here, and the IT admins will be able to log into the management portal and pull that information down to the manager and then allocate those licenses from the vSpace manager to the appropriate vSpace servers A and B. Okay. This is talking about the software client pool cache, and it's important to understand this, and this is actually architected really well. And again, let's talk about the software client connection licenses, again, the software client for Chrome or for PC. And I talked earlier where you may have had 30 license keys and wanted to distribute 10, 10, and 10, that kind of thing. But the important thing to note is this graphic down here, right? In that when you set up the license pool cache, you can set up what the default allocation is. In other words, how many keys the vSpace server is going to get initially, right? What is the maximum number of keys that server can consume? What the minimum number of keys that the server will consume. So when the server boots up, it will take 5 keys. If a 6th user connects, it will grab 5 more keys from the pool, but it will never take more than 25. Okay, so that's how this is going to allow you to dynamically move keys or associate keys to the environment to make sure that every user will have a key, obviously up to the number of keys that you have available. Okay, so no longer do you have to worry about, well, I've got to put 10 keys on server 1, 10 keys on server 2, etc. Because what if the 11th user connects? That's what this feature is going to do for you. The license cache will be able to allow you to dynamically move that information. Same with the premium license features, right? The premium license features, again, in this case, if we have vCast, what you'll be able to do is you'll log into the manager. The manager, then you'll be able to say, I want this premium feature, and I want to move it from this server over to this server, or I want it to assign this feature to this server. And notice that if you actually move it, or if you've assigned it, it will show you that you no longer have any feature, any additional keys to allocate. So it's a feature that you'll be able to allocate within the manager from one server to the other, and you'll be able to tell where it's been allocated to. This is actually just a next steps kind of thing. So at this point, does anybody have any questions or answers around the architecture? Because in just a minute, I'll go ahead and log into the management portal, and I'll show you some information that's in the management portal, as well as I'll show you a little bit about the console. All right. With that, then, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring up the my VM and let you connect to that. So hopefully everybody can now see that I am connected to a server 2016. I'm using 2016 as part of my lab. And what you see here is obviously the vSpace Manager, and all I did was I clicked on the vSpace Manager icon on my desktop. And my vSpace Manager, and you can see that I'm logged in. So real quick, I want to show you how that works. If I were to go to NComputing.com, right? And you notice up here it says login, and you notice there's no icon or indication of the management portal. But if I go ahead and I click login, I'm going to get a login screen, and obviously it has my information. And I'm going to go ahead and click login, and you'll notice up here as soon as I get connected, the management portal now becomes available or visible. One thing that is important and I want to point out here is that with partners and or customers, it is now important that when you create your account on the management portal that you actually use valid data. We've had many people that used to register vSpace servers with John Smith at 123.com, and that was actually unuseful data, and it didn't do the customer any good, and it didn't do any good for us as well. So if you have a customer or you are a customer that you've created accounts and you either used your individual account or a bogus account, you're going to want to go back in and make sure that you have an updated account that uses the correct credentials. And the reason is that if I create an account, John Smith at 123.com, and that's how I download software, and that's how I register my vSpace Manager, and then my organization decides that we want to use the premium feature of the Resource Monitor, if I purchase that premium feature Resource Monitor, and what's going to happen is that key is going to mycompany.com, and because that domain won't match my credentials, I will never be able to see that key. So just make sure that when you're creating accounts in the management portal today, you're actually using valid data. And if your data is not appropriate, let us know and we can make sure that it gets corrected. Likewise, we found where there have been instances where an organization where, let's say I created Rich at mycompany.com, and then Job, as a field technician, Job created an account was Job at 123.com, not the real company. And because I want to be able to assign Job a role within my organization, what we can do is we can reassign Job's account to be part of the overall corporate account for us. So if you have that scenario, just let us know, but it is important to know that the user accounts are valid information accounts, okay? Now, as we talked about a little bit earlier during the slide presentation, there are different roles of information that people will be able to see depending on their login. Because I am an employee login, I will things that other people won't be able to see. So, but like I could go in here and I could type in customer 123 and I could see customer information. In fact, in this case, again, you see where somebody just put 1234. I can click on the account number. I can see what users have been assigned and what role they've been assigned within the environment. I can see what software license keys that they have when they're going to expire and whether they're not been enabled. I can see devices that are within the organization. In this case, this is where the devices that would connect that would fall under warranty would show up here, and/or devices that you may have scanned with the mobile application, like I said, for the Android or iOS. Excuse me. And then obviously you'll be able to see the vSpace managers, the information about the vSpace managers, what client licenses, and in fact you'll actually be able to disconnect it. And that would be the reason you'd want to disconnect is if a vSpace manager went out of service for some reason. Okay. And then you can click on the vSpace Manager and you can see additional information about the vSpace Manager. Again, this is all within the management portal. This is the AWS piece that is controlled and ran by us. Again, it's nothing you need to worry about other than the fact that you have an account here and the valid information. So now this is my vSpace Manager. Again, this would be within your environment, right? And within the vSpace Manager environment, you can see here that I can see how many different vSpace servers that I have. I can see the information about those two vSpace servers, what version of vSpace they're running. I can see that of the three, I have two that are online. I can see the cache settings. We were talking about this a couple minutes ago, right? The default allocation, the maximum number of keys, the increment value, and the minimum. So the ceiling, floor, update, and the maximum information, okay, or maximum license keys. We can see the license keys, again, how many, the fact that they're trial, when they expire, and when they were purchased. We can see what premium features. This is where the resource monitor or classroom manager, if I have those keys when they come out, you'll be able to see that information here. This is also where you can redeem those keys. So if you as a partner or customer purchase the product and you receive a key via email, you'll be able to go up here and redeem license keys and type in the key and redeem that key. You can see the services that are running on the server, and you can restart the services within this information, okay? So again, this is the vSpace Manager, and it shows who I am, how I'm connected, the fact that it is connected to the management portal. It is the name of the vSpace Manager up here, and I encourage everybody to change this name. By default, it is my vSpace Manager. Right now, as you saw earlier, probably many of the vSpace managers are registered as my vSpace Manager, which doesn't provide any information for you or us. So again, I would encourage everybody to change that information. So now I'm going to click on the vSpace console. And basically what the vSpace console is the vSpace console is the updated GUI and interface and portal, I guess, if you will, locally. Again, this is within the customer environment. Everything that we're going to see within the vSpace console is actually taking place or replacing what is in the NC console. For the first couple of versions of vSpace Pro, we are going to include the NC console and the vSpace console just in case there's any functionality that we miss, and or for customers who just, for whatever reason, choose to use the NC console instead of the vSpace console. But from the vSpace console, notice I can see my manager, right? So I can see my vSpace Manager. I can see that I have three servers online and one offline, and all servers are indicating that they're okay. I can click here and I can see them, right? And I notice that on vSpace Pro 10, this machine that I'm using, I happen to have one active session. It's utilizing 1% CPU. 65% of the memory of that machine is consumed, not by the session, but overall. I can see what version of firmware is available and being used, and then over here on the ellipsis I can change the information that's displayed if I wanted to. Just select the different information about the machine. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this machine, and again, the nice thing is now I get a little bit more detailed information about the machine, right? I see what version it is, what the OS is. I can see what the hardware is. I get a graphical view of the CPU load and the memory, how long the server has been up and running, how many logged in users there are, and this is just the dashboard view. I can then click on the sessions, or the sessions view, and I can see that I have one session. And just like before we used to be able to do with the NC console, I could go up here and take control or view the session itself. I can send a message. I can disconnect or stop the session, and if I wanted to type in a serial number or a device-friendly name, Lab1, I could type in that information and find that device. I can see what premium features are available on the server, and then I can see or set the different settings for this vSpace server. Again, if you will, everything that's in the vSpace console is going to be replacing what's in the NC console, right? So the things that you used to be able to do within the NC console, you can now do here. So if I wanted to set the devices or set it for auto login, I can set auto login. I could set the information up for the user sessions, right? So the cleanup disconnected session timer, that's still here. It's now set for 5 minutes, right? The login timeout is set for 30 minutes, right? So each session will sit there for 30 minutes without being logged in before it gets bounced, right? Whether or not you want to enable the NC console, display wallpaper, the last username, all the things that you're used to seeing within the NC console. This piece up here, though, it's one that I like to point out to everybody, and that is the client name environment variable behavior. Okay, so within remote desktop services or remote desktop sessions, the client name environment variable is something that Citrix uses, Microsoft RDS uses, and we use, and a lot of different software applications such as library management or classroom management software will use that to be able to identify and set locations or settings information about those terminals. Currently, with some of the versions of vSpace, it would set the client name variable to NCC-serial number of the terminal. Well, that's all well and good, but it doesn't do me any good as an administrator. It doesn't tell me anything. I have no idea where that terminal is or what that terminal is doing. So now you'll be able to have the ability to toggle whether you want to display serial number or set it to the device local friendly name. So if you go back here and you look and notice that the device name is Lab 1, that could be reception, that could be room 26, station 13, it could be security desk. Again, that is the device friendly name that you put on the device and replace the serial number, and that's how that information will then show up to the different applications. So again, that's where that setting is for the client name environment variable. This is where you'll be able to set the performance profiles. You know, is it on high-speed network, low-speed network for the L series, MX series, and the vSpace client devices. And then this is talking about the peripheral device features, right? And this is where you will either be able to enable or disable USB redirection. And this USB redirection is for the storage devices, right? And currently it is set per host. So if I disable that and reboot the host, the user stations would not be able to use USB thumb drives. So for security purposes, some people have to be able to have that. In the future, and the reason I point this out, in the future there's actually going to be another section that's going to show up here, and that is going to be for COM port redirection. This is something we've been asking for quite some time now, and that if you have stations that, let's say they have a scale connected to them or a barcode reader, and an application that is being used expects that peripheral device to always be at COM3, you'll be able to go in here and you'll be able to say enable COM port and set that COM port to always be COM3. Okay, so that's going to be built into the interface soon. That probably will be in the next version or the second version after that. Okay, so and one of the things that I've asked for recently as well is from the vSpace Manager, when we have updates to vSpace, ideally at some point you will start getting notifications on the vSpace Manager letting you know that there are updated versions of software. So again, this is the vSpace console. Like I said, everything that you can do in the NC console, you'll be able to do within the vSpace console. You'll be able to see the premium features. You'll be able to see the sessions and take control of the sessions and then have a dashboard view of the server as well. And the nice thing again is, if I'm going to continue to click back here a little bit, right? If I go to the home screen, you'll be able to see, again, I can see my vSpace managers and then my devices. So I have a single pane of glass, if you will, or a single view of the information within my environment. I can click on my managers. Once I've selected the manager, I can choose the server that's within my environment and just drill down, and I can see the sessions. So no longer do I have to change screens or applications to be able to get down to my user sessions. I can actually go right through the environment and take control of the session. Okay? So with that, I will ask again, does anybody have any questions? I've rambled on for quite a bit of time. Any questions, anyone? Everybody's muted, so if you have any questions, remember to unmute yourself.
Yes, I have a small question.
Sure.
Just to clarify, if I have one vSpace server in my environment, I will be able to install the console on this and manage that vSpace server. And then if later on, if I include a secondary vSpace server, I'll be able to manage it from the original server, correct?
Yes. So what you're talking about is initially, I'm hoping you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can.
Initially you'd have a single operating system, right? Whether it be physical or virtual, where you would do a standard install and you'd install both the vSpace Manager role and the vSpace Server role, and that vSpace Manager would be registered, and the vSpace Manager or vSpace Server would be connected to that. And that configuration would allow users to connect to this host and get their sessions. And then later on, let's say a week, 2 weeks, a month from now, you wanted to expand your environment and connect another vSpace server. And that's where this environment would move to this screen here, or this section, right? And then what you would do is you would do a custom install another vSpace server and connect that vSpace server to that manager. And that would allow you to do what I was just doing, and that you would connect to your vSpace console. You would see your vSpace manager, right? You launch that vSpace manager, and then both of your vSpace servers would show up here. And then from here, you could, again, drill down into the environment. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, but I have another one based off of that.
Sure.
So would it be possible if, let's say, for example, I have two vSpace servers, but I want to install the manager on a third server that only manages the other vSpace servers? Is that possible?
So you can have multiple vSpace managers in a single environment, okay? And that's what this is demonstrating, right? So I can, again, let's say that this is building, let's say I have a large warehouse. This could be my warehouse environment where I have one vSpace manager in the warehouse. I have another vSpace manager in the warehouse. This one controls production. This one controls administrative. So they can be in the same facility or they could be different facilities, and you could have two vSpace managers, but each vSpace server must be connected to a manager, and each vSpace server can only be connected to one manager. Now you can disconnect it and move it, but it can only be connected to one manager at a time.
Okay.
Okay?
And that vSpace manager you're talking about is the cloud-based vSpace manager, or is it software that we install?
This is part of the vSpace install. Okay,
Okay.
the cloud version is and that is the management portal.
Okay, understood now.
Okay, in fact, let's go back up here, right? So what we were just talking about is the vSpace manager and the vSpace servers, and they are connected to the management portal, which is again what is hosted at AWS and managed by us.
Okay.
Okay, and that's why part of the reasons why we do this session is to make sure that everybody understands the connectivity and the purposes of these different functions, is because if you're used to doing vSpace today where you just install vSpace and the users get their sessions, conceptually if you're going to do a larger deployment, it's important to understand the roles of these different pieces so that you make sure that you do it well and do it right initially so you don't have to go back and rebuild the environment. Okay? Any other questions?
Yes, I would like to ask a question, please.
Certainly.
If we have a number of existing L300 terminals and we want to go to the vSpace Pro, does it require purchasing any additional licenses, or would they be able to work outright?
No, if you have existing L300s, right, and interestingly enough, this is part of the reason why we're changing some of this, but if you have an existing L300 environment today and you want to basically continue doing the same thing you've been doing, just establishing and getting sessions from a vSpace server, there's nothing new for you to purchase. You just go up to the NComputing.com, create your account, and download the software. The advantage vSpace Pro does for you is vSpace Pro does introduce the ability to be able to connect to Windows 10 and Server 2016. And obviously, 2016 was released yesterday. Okay, so the only thing that you would have to purchase, if you will, is if you wanted to take advantage of the software clients, like for a Chromebook or for a PC, or if you wanted to be able to take advantage of the premium features for the Classroom Manager or the Resource Monitor, then that is something you would have to purchase with your existing L300s. But to just get sessions and do like you've been doing with your existing L300s, there would be nothing you would have to purchase. Does that answer your question?
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. Yes. The previous version before 10 was 8.4, I believe, right?
Correct.
If we are upgrading to 10, do we have to uninstall 8.4 and then install 10, or is it an in-place upgrade where you can just run it and it will upgrade itself?
So going from 6 to 8 or 8 to 10, you will have to do an uninstall and reinstall. If you're
Okay,
going to go from 8.4 to 8.5, you would not. You would be able to do an inline upgrade. Likewise, the initial version of vSpace Pro is 10.1. When we come out with 10.2 or 10.3, you'll be able to do an inline upgrade from that version. Okay.
okay. Another question. Suppose we wouldn't like to go cloud, but still would like to have the management portal. Is there like a appliance or any other means of getting a management functionality? Do we have to go through the AWS?
Again, the AWS piece is just something for managing or for redeeming licenses. Okay, so the AWS management portal is not something that you need to worry about. It's not something you need to purchase. It's not something you need to manage. You just need to have an account there to be able to see and distribute your licenses. Um, it is not an appliance. Again, it's just something that we have. The vSpace managers and the vSpace servers are something that you potentially could deploy in the cloud if that's what you wanted to do. Um, and so let's say that you wanted to be a service provider. So you could install a vSpace manager as a cloud instance of your own. That vSpace manager would connect to the management portal just like any other vSpace manager. And then you could put vSpace servers out at site 1, site 2, site 3 and have them connect to the vSpace manager in the cloud. Absolutely. Now, I can't speak for the scalability or the performance of that because that's not certainly not something that I've personally tested or deployed yet, but there's no reason that it shouldn't work. Again, the communications between the vSpace server and the vSpace manager is only license and registration data, and it's only periodically. It's not regular communication. It's,
Oh, okay.
the difference between the clients and the vSpace servers, that's where the users would be getting their sessions. So for today with vSpace, because it's important to understand that vSpace today uses our own protocol, which is called UXP, and we are currently using UXP 1.0. So the sessions coming from the vSpace server to the client is relatively small, but high volume of data packets, and that's why if there's latency, it impacts the user's experience. We are in process of developing UXP 2.0, which will be part of 10.x, probably early to mid next year. And UXP 2.0 will be more WAN ready, I guess, if you will, or more cloud aware, so that you will be able to install the vSpace servers in the cloud at some point in the future. Okay. But again,
Okay.
to your point, you can have the vSpace Manager installed wherever you want. The communication between the vSpace Manager and the vSpace server is relatively small and only periodic. So yes, you could have this in the cloud and then have, let's say for purposes of an explanation, I could have a vSpace Manager at AWS. I could have a vSpace server in New York, California, and Texas. Those servers would communicate to my vSpace Manager that I manage from here, and then they would have clients on site connecting to those servers. Okay. And also, you also asked about an appliance, so I want to explain that real quick. The reason that we don't create these as appliances is because as we're not a Microsoft licensed software provider, we cannot distribute Microsoft software. That's the reason we don't do it as an appliance.
Understood.
Okay. Any additional questions?
Yeah, just one more from me. You said
Certainly.
that after 4 days of the vSpace manager not communicating with the management portal, um, the clients are going to start to lose connectivity to the vSpace servers.
So after, if you have a vSpace server that loses connectivity to the vSpace manager, or if the vSpace manager loses connectivity to the management portal, the clients will continue to get their sessions but any premium features, such as the classroom manager, resource manager, or the software client licenses for Chrome or PC, those would stop working after 96 hours. Okay? So now, having said that, in case your question is revolving around offline registration, yes, we still do have an offline registration process for those instances where, let's say that this entire environment could be in a secure area where there is no internet connectivity. Yes, we do have an offline registration process for that.
And the number of clients per, well, you said for now the maximum number of clients per server is 20, but in the future that can be expanded?
No, so the maximum number that I mentioned, let me go find that slide, I think is here, is we expect that a vSpace manager, this piece here, can handle up to hundreds of vSpace servers, right? So a manager could have hundreds of these. But from a practical perspective, for now, we're saying stick to the 20 to 25 range. As far as end user sessions, we still currently have a limit where a vSpace server will support up to 100 active or concurrent sessions today. But that will likely change. Okay. All right. Well, I think everybody's done with their questions for today. Then I would like to say thank you all for attending. I hope it made sense to you. Again, the importance is to understanding the architectural deployment differences between the vSpace 6 and vSpace 8 and vSpace Pro. If you have any questions, certainly be sure to let us know. And wish you best of luck. And thank you for attending. Have a great day.